All right, let's talk about a word we all use but maybe don't fully understand: risk. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and move past the simple, everyday idea of it. We're diving deep into the fascinating and pretty complex science of how the experts really see and manage risk.
I mean, be honest. When you hear the phrase risk management, does your brain immediately go to a clipboard, a bunch of boxes you have to tick off for some compliance audit? Yeah, for most of us, that's kind of the vibe.
But what if I told you that for professionals, managing risk is a deeply technical discipline? We're talking something as complex as engineering or even psychology. That checklist? That's just the very, very tip of a massive hidden iceberg.
So, let's start right there. Let's move beyond that checklist idea and completely reframe how we're even thinking about this stuff.
This right here gets to the heart of it. On the one hand, you have the common view. It's reactive, it's about ticking boxes, basically just trying to avoid failure after the fact. But the expert view? That's a whole different game. It's proactive. It's not about checklists. It's about understanding incredibly complex systems. And it's not just about dodging failure. It's about scientifically navigating uncertainty itself.
So to even begin that kind of expert analysis, you have to start by looking outward. You got to understand the world, the entire environment that a risk is born into. Let's peel back that first layer.
Professionals start with what they call risk context. And all that really means is that no risk ever happens in a vacuum, right? It's always shaped by the world around it, the culture, the economy, the political climate. You can think of it as the stage where the whole drama of risk plays out.
And this quote just shows you how deep that context goes. It's talking about how different worldviews can completely change what risk even means. What one culture sees as a catastrophic loss, another might see as a necessary sacrifice for a higher purpose. It's the exact same set of facts, but perceived as a totally different risk.
So you see, the pros are analyzing all of these things at once. They're looking at culture, at power dynamics, at political pressures. They're using systems thinking to map out how this entire external world puts pressure on an organization. It's a huge, multi-layered investigation of everything on the outside.
Okay, so from that giant external world, we're about to zoom all the way in. Because once you've looked at the world outside, you have to deal with the most unpredictable factor of all, the inner world of the human mind.
And this brings us to the science of what's called risk cognition. It's basically the study of how our own brains, with all our biases, our emotions, our memories, actually process the very idea of risk. This is the psychological piece of the puzzle.
And here's the absolute core of it. We think we see reality, but we don't. This quote explains that we all have a selective filter. Our feelings, our goals, our experiences, they literally dictate what we even notice in the first place. We are hardwired to see certain risks and be completely blind to others.
The best way to think about it is this. Your perception of the world isn't a clear window you look through. It's a filter, and that filter is totally unique to you. What gets through my filter is going to be different from what gets through yours.
So you've got the complicated outer world, and you've got the filtered inner world of our minds. What happens when those two things smash into each other inside the structure of an organization? Well, you get a maze.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You have all these smart people, all this data, so why do huge organizations so often have these massive, shocking blind spots when it comes to risk? Well, this diagram gives you a clue. Don't worry about the details, just look at the feel of it. This isn't some neat and tidy flowchart. It's a mess. It's what experts call a rich picture. You've got competing departments, tangled lines of communication, pressure from the outside. It's a web.
And that messiness, that complexity, is exactly what creates the blind spots. Important information gets trapped in one department. The marketing team's top priority is just background noise to the engineering team. The very structure of the organization can end up hiding the biggest risks.
So, we've looked at the outside world, the inside of our minds, and the organizational maze. For this last part, we're going to pull it all together and see how the experts connect all of these dots.
This phrase right here is everything. The real genius isn't in looking at any one of these things by itself. It's in understanding their interdependent relationship. It's a feedback loop, right? The outside world affects the company, which affects how people inside it think, which then changes how the company deals with the outside world. It all flows together.
And because everything is so interconnected, huge disasters are almost never caused by one big thing going wrong. Nope, they're usually caused by a whole chain of small, seemingly unrelated things that just happen to line up in the worst possible way.
And this is where the real science comes in. We can actually put numbers on this. Imagine this scenario based on real airline safety data. First, a pilot is at the wrong altitude. Pretty rare, a 1 in 1,000 chance. Then, the co-pilot doesn't catch it, a 1 in 100 chance. Then, air traffic control misses it, a 1 in 10 chance. Finally, a warning system gets ignored, a 50-50 chance. Each step is unlikely, but possible.
So what happens when you multiply all of those probabilities together? You find out that the chances of all 4 of those independent failures lining up on the very same flight is 1 in 2 million. This is how experts turn abstract fears into concrete mathematical risk.
And that brings us back to the main point. Real expertise in risk isn't about having the best checklist. It's about being able to see the entire interconnected system at once. The external pressures, the internal psychology, the organizational chaos, and the cold, hard math. It's about seeing the connections that nobody else does.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. If risk is really this giant tangled web of systems, what does our idea of control even mean? Are we ever really in control? Or are we just learning how to better navigate the odds?